Well, that wasn't too bad getting this out of the truck, but bit of a pain for sure. So what we're working on here is the front differential four-wheel drive shift. This truck, four-wheel drive doesn't work. Um, Everything else works up to the actuator. The actuator, of course, it works fine, and it works fine when you turn the switches on the dash, and I can hear the transfer case. Everything works, except there's no four-wheel drive. So we went into the front diff, and we pulled the half axle off to check the gearing and the collars, the shift collar, all that stuff. Come on, get on there. And those mechanos, that's all in good shape, except for I got that on upside down. We put that properly so people don't get confused here. Goes like that. Flat side. Actually, no, it does go the other way. Sorry, folks. There, flat side down. Okay. So anyway, the shift fork. Of course, it's got these little plastic pads on here. They are known to wear out and to break off. Both of these pads were still in place, but just barely. You can see this one's pretty beat up. So it looks like it was still on when I pulled the axle out. It was still on, and it looked like that. On this side, of course, it looks good because that's the disengaged side. So it would disengage to two-wheel drive, but it wouldn't engage into four-wheel drive. And the engaged side, I don't know if you can see that, is all dented. So the fork would go to push against it, and instead of moving the gear, it would just slide like that. Okay. The other side looks okay, but I believe it's basically the same issue. Anyway, so I found that part one was half of the pad was mashed. Does that focus? Half of the pad is mashed, so the fork on this side of the fork wasn't catching on it. But here's the other thing. I found the pin in almost three pieces. That's the pin that goes through there, which goes through the hole in the shaft, which is actuated by actuator. Okay, so I'm not sure which is the cause of my problem here, whether it's the pads were not engaging or that the pin was broken and it wasn't moving enough to engage. Either case, here we are. So to fix this, here's what you need. Okay, so Dorman 60560 shift fork off of Amazon, $50 Canadian. And what you get is the fork with new pads. You get an O-ring, which goes on the shaft here to seal off the housing. You get a new pin, and you get a new spring clip. And that must be a bonus clip, because the only clip I can think of that looks like that would be this one here, which is what holds the axle shaft in the housing and the bearings. So if I wanted to change the seal, now would be a good time. pull that clip, slide the housing off, change the seal, and put it back on. But it doesn't leak, so I don't need to. Anyway, that's where we're at. We're going to put a new fork in the truck, new pins, clean this up, put a new O-ring, get that all done, clean up the actuator, make sure it's working nicely, clean up all my gears. The oil in the truck is horrible, so now's a good time to flush this. I'll just flush out this side, and then I'll flush the rest of the diff before I put it all back together. Anyway, those are the parts. Anybody who's got similar issues and wondering what's what, there you go. I've discovered two problems here. One is the pads, which not everybody, but others have shown in other videos and the forums. But the other one that doesn't come up often or mentioned is the broken pins. And this is the third time I see this. This pin broken. It's probably related to the shift not working properly. Anyway, there we go. Okay, anybody wondering on dimensions of the pads and stuff here? The new ones are 14 millimeters wide, 16 millimeters high, and the distance between the two here is 56 millimeters. That's inside to inside, and that fits, of course, just over top like that onto there. Okay, the old ones I measured, they are they're worn and beat up. They're still 16 this way, that way. The width though is worn down to 12 millimeter, and then as far as the thickness or distance between the two, it's about 57 and a half. So yeah, these little pads wear out. You know what would be cool is if you could buy just the pads, not have to buy the fork and the whole kit, but if you could buy just the pads and make a plan to go in there every, I don't know, 20,000 kilometers and change the pads. I guess it depends on what your 4x4 usage is, but yeah, I guess it'd be a lot more than 15 or 20. This truck's got 220, and there's evidence that somebody's been in there before, but I have no idea when. I just bought the truck. So, anyway, that's where we're at. Just about ready to put it back in.